to order the village board for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. Roll call, please.
President Kardasky.
Here.
Trustee Service.
Here.
Trustee Paul. Here. Trustee Zerbal.
Here.
Trustee Atkinson.
Here.
Trustee Krieger.
Here.
And Trustee Flukie.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. And please remember our men and women throughout the world in uniform. I need a motion on the agenda. I have no changes.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. Number 5, action on the minutes of the open and closed minutes from March 26, 2024 and April 9th, 2024.
Move to approve if there's no corrections or additions.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve all those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. Number 6, comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda. Must state your name and address. You're limited to 5 minutes. The board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named, and the board is not able to take action at this meeting. Is there anybody out there who would like to make any comments on items not on tonight's agenda? Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Scott Schroffnagel. I live at 2461 Shady Lane. I would like to discuss a chronic nuisance property. Do you want the address of the property?
Sure.
2472 Shady Lane. There have been multiple police calls, multiple harassment issues with this property. And I did bring it to the attention of the village attorney last month. And since then, it has escalated, and I think it needs to be looked into further.
Okay,
But that's all I got. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else out there who would like to talk about items not on tonight's agenda? Please state your name and address for the record.
John Kellowards, 1179 Lansdale Circle. I sat in this board meeting last fall, and we were promised that you guys were going to be at least give us the opportunity to be grandfathered in for Airbnbs. And I've emailed several people, and nobody's responded at all to it. We were promised that you would at least have a vote on it, or at least do something about it, and nobody's done anything on it. When the Airbnb comes up and we have to do the law says 180 days, consecutive days. I still don't, and everybody I talk to, they don't understand why you don't make it 180 days in the calendar year. Why does it have to be consecutive? It's no different than if somebody owns a liquor store, you only can do business for 6 months out of the year during the Packers season. To me, it's just not fair. I know some of you guys up here are thinking about renting out your house for the Packer draft. I'm going to picture a scenario for you guys, and I honestly want your feel on how fair this is. I rent my house July 1st. I got 180 days. That takes me to the end of the year. Packers make the playoffs. I can't rent out my house, and I can't rent it out for the draft. But everybody up here can rent their house out for the draft. I don't know how any universe where that's fair at all. So I don't know if for the draft, I think you guys have to make an exception. And I know you guys are making it for everybody else. You're not making an exception from what I understand. You're not making any exceptions for people that actually have the license and the Brown County approval, the $350 fee. You know, I don't know how you expect anybody from Airbnb to make money when you're limiting to 180 consecutive days. So my houses have sat still for 6 months now. They have not done anything. There's no income coming in. So I don't know what business you guys were all in, but if you said you can't if you can't do anything for 6 months in your business, you're not going to be in business anymore. You guys have taxed my houses triple to next door to my neighbors. Okay, I made improvements. You guys have taxed it triple. How am I supposed to make that money up when you guys are constantly, is it just you guys don't want them? I mean, I guess that's and when I sat in a meeting with the attorney, I think, and whoever, you guys said, get some input. We sat in there, we gave suggestions. When I went in the village office and I said, what did you do with those suggestions? They said, well, we handed it to the board and the board said, file them. So to me, it's like it's a waste of time. When you guys aren't being honest about stuff, it gets frustrating. Like, I mean, I spent a lot of time in those meetings and, well, they just filed it. They should just file it. I mean, you guys didn't even look at it. So I don't know, I mean, at least look at the idea of changing it from 100 consecutive days to 180 days in the calendar year. I mean, I only rented, previous years, I probably rented it out 80 to 100 days, but I can't rent it out now for the WIA playoffs for the girls, or volleyball, and for the basketball in March, because my 180 days will start in July, and it's consecutive, and I can't do anything about it. So I mean, there's got to be some type of concession there. Just get rid of the word consecutive, and I think everything will be a lot better. And first of all, you're going to see a lot of people then continue paying for the permits, because some people aren't going to do it anymore. They're just going to say, okay, well, let them catch you, because the first 10 days, you guys can't do anything to them. And if they catch you, they'll say, well, it's 2 of my 10 days, if you catch them or whatever. I mean, so there's got to be a better way than what you guys are trying to do this. I mean, I can't believe there's any business where you say you can't run your business for 6 months out of the year. You're restricting us. So I wish you guys would consider that, at least taking that consecutive out of it. And then I think everybody will be somewhat a little bit happier, and I think everybody will be playing at least fair. But just think about what I said about the draft. I mean, I can't rent my house out for the draft according to your rules. To me, that's not fair at all. I can't rent it out for the playoffs if the Packers make the playoffs. Because you guys, 180 consecutive days, I think is ridiculous. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make any comments on items not on tonight's agenda? Sir, if you come to the front, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Paul Steinbrecker, 1281 Canterbury Road. I'd like to kind of bring up the same items that the previous gentleman just talked about, but I was looking at it a little different. Now, we were here last spring and we went through the whole scenario, and what was approved for the ones who already had licenses was we were grandfathered in for 1 year on the 6 consecutive night provision. So that is the item that we were supposed to be able to discuss now, or that was, we were talked about. We wanted to see how this was going to go. Did the current rules that you put forth, did that stop the flood of the short-term rentals in the village, which it did? I emailed the village about a month ago, and I'm told that we're at 73 licensed properties in the village. That's actually down from where it was a year ago. So the provisions you put forth, the new rules, are really stopping anybody from doing this anymore. So what you tried to accomplish has happened. You've stopped that, so that you're not getting more people coming in. Business owners aren't trying to set up short-term rentals in the village anymore. They're going to Green Bay and the surrounding communities that don't have those restrictions. So what we're looking for is to address that situation with the 6-night minimum and get that grandfathered in like we did with the 180-day. To take care of the owners who've been doing this for many years, to make sure that we can continue to improve our properties, continue to maintain our businesses, and continue to improve them. So that's what I would like brought forth, that gets discussed, whatever council or through the board here, whatever we need to do to get that put on the agenda so we can get this discussed and I guess try to put this to bed for the long term. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on items not on tonight's agenda? One more time, anybody who'd like to speak on items not on tonight's agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Written communications or announcements. The only thing I would like to say is, I know that we have in the packet that it's Arbor Day, but we won Tree City USA again. Tim did, our forestry department, so I just wanted to mention that. So, since it was Earth Day yesterday. So, anybody else have any announcements? Okay, moving on. Action on the consent agenda. 8A, change of agent, Kodiarma Inc., DBA Americ Inn by Windham, J. Kumar Patel. B, change of agent, SBG Apple North 4 LLC, DBA Applebee's Neighborhood Grill and Bar, David Oistrich. Change of agent, GMRI Inc., DBA The Olive Garden Italian Restaurant, number 1346, Karika Zaremba. D, receive, accept proclamation declaring April 28, 2023 as Arbor Day in the Village of Ashwaubenon. 8E, review, accept strategic plan action item report. 8F, receive, accept March 2024 investment report. G, receive, accept the February 2024 year-to-date financial reports. H, receive, accept March 2024 budgeted expenditures report. I, receive, accept April 2024 Public Works Department monthly report. J, receive, accept April 2024 Parks, Rec, and Forestry Department reports. K, consider, discuss, act on committee appointments for May 2024 through April 2025. Would anybody want anything pulled, or I need a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Does anybody want anything?
If we could pull 8G, please.
8G?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to amend your motion to approve with G pulled out for discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We have an amendment to that, so we will pull G, but we have a motion to accept everything else. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, Tracy, 8G.
I just wanted to mention, and Greg's not here tonight, but it's nice to see, we've always gotten the report for the general fund, telling us where we're at in the general fund, the monthly report. But Greg has added the report on all our special funds, which will give us an idea of all of our internal funds, our capital funds, and everything, and where we're at on that. And also the village fund balance reports out there as well. So I just want to mention and thank Greg and the staff for putting those together, because it gives us a better idea of where we are, not only in our general fund, but in all of our other funds that we do have and that we're responsible for. So that's it.
Okay. We now need a motion to approve 8G.
Motion to approve 8G.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve 8G. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 9, public hearing. Public hearing on a planned unit development PUD amendment request for signage at the Resch Center, 840 Armed Forces Drive, parcel VA-41-6. Aaron?
The public hearing request is, as stated, for a proposed PUD amendment or planned unit development amendment that covers the Resch Center and Resch Expo, for additional signage at the Resch Center to serve basically as some directional signage, and informational signage for people attending events at the Resch Center.
Okay. Anybody here would like to speak for or against this item? Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this item? Anybody online who would like to speak for or against this item? Hearing none, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, action items. 10A, consider, discuss, act on a planned unit development PUD amendment request for signage at the Resch Center, 840 Armed Forces Drive, parcel VA-41-6. Aaron, I don't know if you have anything to add. The only thing I would add is that this was before Plan Board, and the advertising that will be on this sign will not be off-premise, because ordinances do not allow that. It will be on-premise signage. So, any other questions? Aaron is available.
And it looks like they did a requirement for make sure the weight and that it can hold the sign as well. Have they done that already or given information on that? Or is that something that will say they get the permit if they give us that information?
Correct. The PUD amendment would be conditioned upon providing stamped engineering demonstrating that the new sign or the vestibule can handle the weight of the new sign.
Okay, if there's no other questions,
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
motion and a second to approve the PUD amendment for parcel VA-41-6. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. 10B, consider, discuss, act on a site plan review request for a proposed new multi-venue bar restaurant at 789 Armed Forces Drive, parcel VA-41-4-E. Aaron.
All right, what I'd like to do is share my screen to bring up the proposed site plan. Okay, starting off here, what you see is the proposed site plan for current address of 789 Armed Forces Drive. As depicted, the new building is to be located close to Armed Forces being located here on the right-hand side of the screen. Outdoor seating here and here, a small stage area right here be the northwest corner of the property. Additional outdoor turf seating, entertainment area to the rear of the property with then on-street parking located behind it. Refuse containers located right here, and then a pass-through driveway to the existing Anduzzi's parking lot and fire lane. In terms of the exterior materials, as depicted on the elevations, it is a mixture of masonry, storefront aluminum windows, garage doors, and concealed fastener metal wall panels. The west elevation, as depicted here, of course, would face Lambeau Field. North elevation, as depicted in the middle, would front the Resch Center. There was some discussion at both Site Plan Review Committee and Plan Commission regarding the available on-site parking. The applicant has requested the ability to provide a presentation to try to address some of those concerns. So as soon as I'm completed here, what we'll do is we'll have them come up front, give a quick presentation on that. Should be noted that the Site Plan Review Committee voted 3-2 to recommend approval of the site plan with staff conditions. Plan Commission voted 4-2 to recommend denial of the site plan. What I can do is just run through the recommended conditions of approval that staff has should the village board ultimately decide to approve the site plan. From zoning administration, building inspection, screen any new or larger replacement rooftop or ground mounted mechanical units visible from the property boundaries or public right-of-way. Conventional curb pan or rolled curbing is required for any new parking or drive lane areas. And the catch-all meet all applicable requirements of the Ashwaubenon site plan review ordinance and all other applicable village ordinances. And from public safety, coordinate with APS regarding replacement of the Knox box at the main entrance. And I do want to, again, just reiterate that this is for the site plan and site plan review ordinance requirements. So with that, I'll hand it off to the development group, and they can present their presentation.
Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Patrick Skolecki, consulting engineer with Grafe at 116 South Adams Street, Green Bay.
Andy Samansky, 789 Armed Forces Drive.
Max Caesar, 1992 Holmgren Way. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for the chance to speak tonight. Again, my name is Max Caesar, and I'm the operations officer at Anduzzi Sports Club and Waverly Beach. And hopefully 789 Armed Forces Drive if we're given the opportunity to move forward with this project. Tonight I'm here with Andy and Lisa Szymanski, the managing members of our company, and Pat Skolecki, our lead engineer from Grafe, USA. So this group, along with Shoe Construction, Kaler Slater Design, and Whitfley LLP, are the lead partners on this project. I want to share that a great amount of work has gone into this development, and we're on the verge of bringing something exceptional to our area. A state-of-the-art facility the entire community can be proud of. With approval from the village tonight, we can bring this development to life. So our goal tonight is to adequately address existing village concerns so that we may move forward on this project and bring it to the proposal to the finish line. We'd like to present some new information to the board that we anticipate will provide village leadership with the confidence to support 789 Armed Forces moving to its next stage in development. So after reviewing village feedback on this project site plan, tonight we'll address what we understand to be three primary concerns. The first is liquor licensing, the second being the parking accommodation, and the third and final being the project financing, which we'll cover in closed session. So to start, we'll touch on liquor licensing. One of the recurring issues that most municipalities need to navigate is the availability and to be able to issue liquor licenses. As we all know, every municipality is granted a quota calculated from a variety of factors. As municipalities near their regulated quota, they can force difficult decisions about when and to whom they allocate these licenses to when considering new development. Municipalities at quota are forced to identify and purchase liquor licenses from other areas if they might support a new development but do not have available licenses to issue. So understanding the current landscape of the license quota in Ashwaubenon, we wish to avoid creating a burden to the village in the spirit of community partnership. By not pursuing traditional liquor licenses, it would allow the opportunity for additional development, which is a good thing for Ashwaubenon and something we'd support as a business as well. So that said, we're prepared to structure 789 Armed Forces Drive for 300 seats per entity. Designing our proposed concepts to host 300 seats per floor makes this project eligible for above quota Class B liquor licenses to be issued, an exception granted by the Wisconsin Department of Revenue. We'll have the square footage to accommodate this permanent capacity, and pursuing this direction would keep the village in a position to immediately support other development that may be a net positive for the community.
Can I ask a quick question on the 300 seats, and maybe Chris or Patrick can answer it? So 300 per floor.
Correct.
Do they get three separate licenses or state licenses, or is it one license that covers all three floors?
You can have per separate licensing entity. So if there are three separate entities that have three separate full-service restaurants with 300 permanent seatings, then yes, that could be three separate exceptions to the quota. So they could have licenses for all three of them.
Is there a problem getting three state licenses?
Well, the license is still issued by the village, but it's just an exception to the quota. So there necessarily wouldn't be an issue provided that they have the full-service restaurant with the seating capacity.
But that's permanent seating,
Permanent seating, okay.
and then no mixing of the liquor, from floor to floor.
They'd have to stay on the floor that they're at. Okay.
Okay, so moving right along, the next topic is our parking accommodation. So recent discussions with village leadership have brought about concerns regarding the parking capacity for the development. Considering previous feedback, we want to clarify a couple details and provide assurance using real data. So as we kind of navigate this discussion, it's important to do so using business context. And just as a precursor, so we're all on the same page, the stadium district has no mandated parking regulation. Instead, each potential development is treated on a case-by-case basis, with the developer tasked to convince the municipality that they'll fulfill the parking needs of their business. I think there were some misunderstandings from previous meetings around the parking plan that we'll have an opportunity to address specifically tonight. We're going to demonstrate the parking requirements of each entity at 789 Armed Forces Drive to accommodate its patrons under the lens of our existing industry data. So if we dive into these numbers, I want us all to analyze the parking plan as a combination of two conjoined parcels. So if we take a peek at the map on the screen, our group owns 300 private stalls on 2 properties that will support 4 business models. So 1992 Holmgren Way and 789 Armed Forces are connected properties that share a fire lane access. The parcel on Holmgren Way hosts the existing Andrews Sports Club, and that has 157 standard car stalls. 789 Armed Forces will have 143 standard car stalls under the proposed site plan. So collectively, both lots support 300 spaces on site. And a bit of an apology for all the numbers to come here. I don't mean to hijack the board meeting for a math class, but I think it's important that we're thorough given the level of concern over parking during the site plan review. So with that, just so everybody understands the methodology here, we have 6 steps. The first being to identify peak industry average traffic. The second, to identify existing comparable businesses. The third, to calculate peak average traffic distribution by hour. Fourth, to extrapolate comparable traffic distributions to projected new business. The fifth, to forecast the traffic combination of existing business, so Anduzzi's today, plus the projected new business. And finally, to validate future peak average parking needs against future parking capacity. So here's step 1, restaurant traffic. To analyze the parking needs of future entities, we first need to understand what peak business looks like during normal business conditions. So we're in the restaurant business, and the proposed concepts will also operate in our industry. This chart on the screen shows the percentage of transactions our 5 restaurants did by day for the fiscal year of 2023. The only outliers that were omitted were the 8 Packers home games for 2023 to not skew the data on normal business conditions, as these days are the exception for all local business. So when you're reading the chart here, for example, of all the transactions we had across our 5 restaurants in 2023, 6.5% of them occurred on Mondays, 8.1% on Tuesdays, and so on. This distribution is essentially the same if you look at any of our restaurants independently, indicating it's an industry trend resilient to market location. But luckily for our purpose, Anduzzi's on Holmgren Way is in the backyard of the proposed development, so we can infer 789 Armed Forces Drive would follow the same pattern. And you can see here fairly clearly, hang on, Pat. The chart shows Saturdays as the lone leader in transaction volume. And that part's important to focus on because if we can accommodate the traffic in our typical peak day of the week, the rest will be handled fairly easily. So you can see on Saturdays, we do just under 26% of our transactions in a given week. So the next step is to properly project the expected traffic of the 3 proposed entities. So our first floor pizzeria, second floor Western bar and restaurant, and third floor event space. To understand this, the most common valuation method is to prorate existing comparables. Lending institutions use this process when considering funding new business in our industry. Fortunately, we don't have to outsource any of this information because we already operate entities with strong comparables to the proposed concepts at 789 Armed Forces Drive. If we reference this chart here, we've classified the proposed entities at 789 Armed Forces into 3 different camps. So the first one, top left, a high-volume eatery, typically a larger restaurant that does over 60% of its revenue in food. The second in the middle column is a casual restaurant and bar, a concept that does the inverse to an eatery, around 40 to 60 food and beverage split. And the third is a wedding venue, a more traditional banquet hall that relies on large events with a 70 to 30 food to beverage ratio. So if we take a look at the comparisons here, Waverly Beach's restaurant that we have in Menasha is considered a high-volume eatery. So you can see its beverage sales from 2023 were 34%, food sales at 66%. Its square footage is about 8,600 with 472 permanent seats. So its square footage per seat is 18.2. If we look at the proposed pizzeria, first floor at 79 Armed Forces, the anticipated bev to food split would be 30/70. The square footage is 5,600 or so, 300 seats proposed, yielding 18.8 square foot per seat. So the point is very comparable. We have a similar situation with the casual restaurant bar comparing Anduzzi's on Holmgren Way to the anticipated Western bar. So their beverage to food ratio is the inverse of what a high volume eatery does. So at Anduzzi's, 61% of our revenue comes from beverage sales, 39% from food. At the Western bar, we anticipate 65% initially on beverage sales, 35% from food. The square footage at Anduzzi's is 8,300 versus 4,600 at the Western bar, but 469 permanent seats compared to 300. So again, we have comparable square footage per seat, 17.8 with Anduzzi's, 15.4 for the proposed Western bar. And finally, with the event venue, Waverly Beach's banquet space compared to the proposed event space at 789 Armed Forces. 31% in 2023 at Waverly Beach's banquet hall for beverage sales, 69% on food sales and services. Similar distribution anticipated at the event space, primarily hosting the same type of functions like weddings. So we anticipate 25% in beverage sales, 75% food and service sales. Square footage, 10,000 at Waverly Beach compared to, call it 5,800 at Armed Forces Drive. 500 permanent seats, or capacity seats, to 300 capacity seats. Square footage per seat is 20 with the existing concept, 19.3 with the proposed. So we've identified comparable businesses to the proposed entities. Next step is to drill into the percentage of patrons per hour on the peak day of business, which remember is Saturdays. For Saturdays of 2023, these are the percentage of patrons by hour for the existing comparable businesses from the previous chart. So if you look at the graph here, it'll display how 3 different restaurant models experience different traffic peaks even on the same busiest average day of the week. So if we look at the black line, that's Anduzzi's data from 2023. There's a small lunch rush at noon with a later dinner peak between 6 and 7 p.m. The orange line is Waverly Beach's restaurant with a similar lunch rush to Anduzzi's, but a stronger and earlier business peak for dinner between 5 and 6 p.m., with traffic dropping precipitously from there. The yellow line is Waverly Beach's banquet hall with initial traffic starting around 1 p.m., which if you can think about, that's the time most guests arrive for a wedding ceremony, and a stable traffic peak from 5 to 8 p.m., which coincides with the dinner for a reception. So when it was mentioned previously that the proposed models at 789 Armed Forces Drive would be complementary to traffic, you can see what was being referenced. So now we've got the hourly guest distributions for each comparable entity, and we can extrapolate the number of patrons per hour for the new businesses. We'll apply the proper percentage models to each existing venue's actual patterns from 2023 and prorate the new entity traffic according to their seat capacities. So this left table here shows the average number of guests per hour from 2023 for our existing businesses on Saturdays. We exported all of this data from our point of sale systems. The right table then is the projected traffic of the existing Anduzzi's on Holmgren Way, plus the 3 entities for Armed Forces Drive and their cumulative total by hour. We need to understand them in combination because remember, all 4 entities will be sharing 300 stalls on 2 properties. So to calculate the new business traffic, we use the distribution of guests per hour at the existing comparable restaurants and prorated those numbers using the proposed seating capacities to the existing seating capacities. As you can see in our orange column on the far right, we have the total number of patrons by hour on our peak day of the week. So for example, at 4 p.m. on Saturdays, across the 4 businesses, there would be an average of 447 guests, 659 guests during the 5 p.m. hour, 796 during the 6 p.m. hour, and so on. So, after calculating peak average patrons by hour for the proposed entities, we can understand the parking requirements of 789 Armed Forces Drive, combined with Anduzzi Sports Club for the 2 lots that they share. Remember, there is no mandated parking requirement, but several municipalities use the 3-to-1 patron to parking stall ratio, which we do feel is reasonable, primarily validated by the fact that our average check is 3.1 guests per bill in our existing restaurants. So if we use that benchmark, we can divide our anticipated guests that we just calculated by 3 to understand how many stalls will be occupied by hour on our busiest day of the week. As you can see, even in the busiest hours of our peak average day, we have more than enough stalls to accommodate our patrons. On average, at worst, we'll have 35 stalls still available, which we can use to accommodate staff. So this information is enough to give us great confidence as operators in the industry that 300 stalls will be ample accommodation for our guests at 789 Armed Forces Drive and Anduzzi's on Holmgren Way. And we hope the data helps the board arrive at the same conclusion.
One more.
Okay, more piece. We're close. So lastly, our final hurdle is to fully finance this project, which we'll cover specifically later on. We've partnered with Whitfley LLP to understand the minimum support required from the village, and that's all we're going to ask for. This project does require some property tax incremental financing to be viable, but we look forward to sharing why that assistance is well worth it for Ashwaubenon. Ultimately, approvals tonight on the site plan and TIF request allow the project to be completed for the 2025 NFL draft. Further delays would force completion to summer 2025 or beyond. This facility is not being proposed for the draft. The businesses are a long-term investment meant to be sustainable year-round. But we do know that having the project completed by spring of next year would be one more element to showcase to the world how great our community really is. We hope the board is able to support us in building the future of Ashwaubenon, and will continue to make decisions that push the envelope for what is possible in our growing community. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. When you're looking back at seating and square feet per seat, in the Western Bar, it drops, 15% or so. Is there an industry standard for square feet, per seat? I see what you guys run, but.
Yeah, not so much. The best we can do is really take a look at comparables, which is what we were able to do. You know, our models that we're proposing are similar to some that we run today, and that's the best validation that we could do. There's really no, with the variety of concepts across even the local economy, it's gonna vary a ton.
Okay.
I have a question. You said that your average occupancy per vehicle is 3 for your properties. I'm not sure I understand that, especially for the wedding banquet hall facility, because most people don't come, it's usually couples come into the wedding, in my experience. So like if you have capacity for 300, people come in couples, that's 150 spots gone. you only have 150 spots left for your Western bar, your pizza place, and Anduzzi's then? Is there a plan for like an overflow place or shuttle or something for the wedding people, or, I don't know?
So just to clarify, what I shared was our average guest check is 3.1
Oh.
per transaction. So
So how do you get to the parking space number from, because you're in the 700s there for all your combined places. How many parking places is that?
So Ashwaubenon's code doesn't provide a recommendation. So other municipalities have often used the 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 ratio. Without being a civil engineer, I can't answer why those numbers are what they are, but we just use those as reasonable benchmarks because there's existing precedence with that.
I want your project to work. I just don't want people to get frustrated if they can't get there and they can't park nearby, and, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I like the concept.
The 3-to-1 ratio is also, I think it's the business, the B1 district, Aaron? I think. Yeah, the village's B1 district, which is their most restrictive, in other words, lowest ratio of parking stalls per patron is 3-to-1. So we use that as kind of our benchmark and our comparable, basically worst case scenario. In likelihood, it's less than that, and obviously the patron per check, as Mac had indicated, bears that out, that the 3-to-1 is a reasonable number. But and while the sports and entertainment district doesn't stipulate that, that's a comparable that is in your code, even though it doesn't specifically apply to this location, but it does get reinforced by the data that MAC had developed from their point of sale system.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that is including banquet halls. 'Cause I think I view it differently, but I can run the numbers too. I just,
Okay, anybody else have any questions?
I just have some questions. It was maybe more for Aaron than you gentlemen, but, we've talked a lot about parking. And my question is, and Gary's gonna love this, where's the bike rack for this project, and is there one? And it looks like the sidewalk is remaining on Armed Forces. But question I have is, those outdoor areas are right up against the sidewalk. And my concern is, with as many people are moving in there, to have that so tight, I'm concerned about that. And then the other question I have is in regard to all the outdoor areas. I thought we had an ordinance that they had to be secured, so you could not get into them unless you were in the building. Is that no longer an ordinance that we have a requirement for those outdoor seating areas?
Okay, a couple things. The bike rack is on the property, it's on the site plan.
Thank you.
We're good there. The sidewalk is, the public right-of-way is remaining sidewalk, no doubt about that. Outdoor seating, as required under our site plan review guidelines, really does encourage getting that activity up close to the street. The requirement of having basically enclosed areas, that did go away. That was probably 4 or 5 years ago, where really it's incumbent upon the business owners to enforce basically their premise areas where they do serve either alcohol and or food.
So it would be their responsibility, and I guess with the chief being here, to make sure that people weren't wandering out of those spaces with alcohol in their hand.
That's correct.
And
Chief?
Tracy, if I can hop in over here.
Sorry.
If you look at the site plan, a lot of the planters that are positioned around the perimeter are there for a safety barrier for that reason specifically.
So I know at Anduzzi's, you also have planters there as well, so you're looking at something similar here.
Correct.
As
And
well.
any entry to the property, we try to arrange those barriers so that the only entry or exit kind of becomes a choke point, which is a lot easier to patrol.
And then you would have somebody at these sites kind of keeping an eye on that then?
For when the traffic warranted it, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the development team? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak for this project or against this project? Any other comments from people? Oh, we need a motion to open the
Motion to
floor.
open the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, state your name and address, please, for the record.
Joe Zarin, 2001 Holmgren Way, the bar. I'd like to just first of all say that being in the bar location, we are not against development. As you are all well aware, we're hoping to do something someday with our nice parking lot. So, but I want to also congratulate Andy. I think he's a pretty good marketing student because it's awesome to present all these charts with nice colors and overwhelm you with numbers that you get lost in the facts. So I would just ask the board to go back to the facts and maybe not look at the graphs and some of the nice pictures that were presented to you, because there's definitely a marketing ploy going on there to take you away from what you really need to look at. When Anduzzi's opened originally in 1999, it was a year after we opened, they had an original parking issue. We approached them to help them ease their parking issue, and I can't repeat what they told us to say, but in a sense, that's your problem, you deal with it. Okay, nice neighbors. We let their patrons park in our lot. We didn't charge them. That was a burden on us, and it was a burden on our customers. Their customers taking our spots, making our customers walk further. I don't foresee this situation being any different. You can take the average numbers and throw them in the garbage. We're not looking at the average days. We're looking at the busy days. And they didn't address their busy days. You know, I like what Kelly mentioned. When they have when all three of their floors are full and their other restaurant and Doozies is full, they don't have enough parking. So where is that gonna push it? Our lot, Stadium View, D2, the hotels. What does that make us do? It makes us enforce our parking, which we don't want to do. It's additional cost to us. All they do is reap the benefits. So I go back on past history and I look at our busy days. Our busy days are very similar to their busy days, which is everybody in the district, and we don't have enough parking now. So with their current proposal, there certainly isn't going to be enough parking going forward. We're all getting busier. It's a bigger destination area. So adding more, I think, I'm not against the business proposal. I'm against the parking. I think they really need to rethink their 3-to-1. I don't think that's realistic overall, especially when you're talking about catered events or event space along with other things. And I think you really have to look at the Thursday through Monday on home games, all of the concert events, you know, at the Rush Center, drawing more concerts, drawing more events, the Rush Expo Hall. You know, they recently had a volleyball tournament with 198 teams that drew 1,500 people. They got to park somewhere, you know. What's the give? Why does it have to fall on us with big parking lots? Why do we have to open our pocket and say, oh, come and park here today? Let our patrons suffer because yours don't have a place to park. So the sizzle sells, and I give them some credit for throwing that in front of you. But I would say dig in and look at the facts. Because the facts will show you that if they have 900 people in their restaurant and 200 or more in Anduzzi's, they certainly don't have enough parking for their own customers, let alone anything else that's going on in the district area. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to speak for or against this project? Does anybody want to say anything? Okay. State your name and address for the record, please.
Nathan Raveldi, 2391 Holmgren Way, on behalf of Stadium View. Good evening, members of the board. I'd like to reiterate the same things the bar mentioned, in that we don't have an issue with the design, nor do we have an issue with development. The issue is solely with parking here. And I'd like to go through a few of the statistics that were brought up before I go into just the broader issues. So I did notice that there was a lot of what I would call caveats to the data that was provided. Microphone a little closer. Okay. Thank you. I did notice that there were a lot of caveats to the data that was provided. Specifically, when we're looking at the numbers, as the board had already brought up, the patrons per check, that would incorporate individuals that are paying for the group. That doesn't explain how all of the folks actually arrived at the facility. So, and we're also looking at this from just a bigger picture, as the bar actually brought up as well. They excluded the most useful days, the 8 Packers home games. And the charts, which show a very convenient peak to trough, picking up to the next peak, doesn't properly represent, or in fact, we'd like to just make sure the board is understanding that even though the peaks aren't matching, when those peaks are coming down and the next peak is rising, there's a cumulative effect there of folks that are leaving one venue, if you will, and coming into that next venue. So because it's cumulative, at that specific moment in time, prospective customers are not going to wait for that parking to clear. They're going to do exactly what the bar said, and that is go to somebody else's parking location. When I think it's common knowledge, when somebody's looking to go to an establishment, they're looking for parking, they're looking for the first available spot they can find. If they don't find it, they go elsewhere. They don't wait for that peak to go all the way to the bottom of the trough. And that's one thing I'd like to elucidate with the data as well. We also we looked over the presentation, and we do not see them accounting for outdoor seating, nor where the employees are going to park. We also looked at the data that was provided was also derived from sales, as we saw. But there were conveniently and conspicuously no pictures of the existing parking conditions at Anduzzi's during those times, or indicating how full they were. So when we look at the existing development plan, which shows common ownership and this scheme of coordination, if you will, it doesn't factor in 2 issues. One issue, what happens in the future if one of the properties are sold to another owner and the ownership is split, and there isn't this coordination, if you will. And the coordination, enforcing that in the future is going to be very difficult. Beyond that issue, the data was derived from what we've interpreted across their portfolio, which isn't all within this region. So to say that one of the event centers has an increase in customers as others are declining, that doesn't mean that those customers are not being served by another facility that's existing within the district. They're just bringing them all into one location. My client, Stadium View, has a very similar business model, and their lot is at capacity. And in fact, they have issues in which customers, patrons from Anduzzi's are parking in their lot. And my client feels that in the future, this is going to be exacerbated. And the 3-to-1 ratio is there to try and head off these externalities that occur when there's insufficient parking at one location, which is then having to be absorbed by neighboring businesses. So I guess what I would couch that as just a local economics issue. So if they're pulling other businesses that they have in the portfolio that have complementary or similar attributes, those attributes are not being applied within the district at that specific moment in time. And we have not seen that in their presentation. And to that point, just to reiterate, we have not seen any pictures of the parking lots during these very busy times, which we would posit the pictures would show there's a very acute parking shortage. And to that point, when we have this common ownership problem, that does not address issues of potential future problems. If there were to be a split up of the business entities in the future, the existing mix, if you will, can certainly change over time. And it's common knowledge that business folks want to run all of their facilities at optimal capacity, which is usually peak capacity if they can. And the existing plan incorporates and uses within that ratio, which is still deficient, Anduzzi's lot. So it's quite peculiar that, as my client has stated to me, when they drive past the lot, it's full. So are they going to somehow restrict customers in Anduzzi's to compensate for that? That's certainly unclear at the moment. And it's my client's position in this situation that if the size of the development were to be scaled down to accommodate the existing lot and parking realities, that it would be a good addition to the district. But as it's currently set forth, it's well beyond the existing parking capabilities that's available. So with that, we just ask that the board look at, just if this is going to be approved, the exact data that is used, particularly the peak to trough that I mentioned, and understanding that when one business is declining, another business may be increasing, but that doesn't mean even though your sales stop, people leave right away. And it's that temporal moment in which customers then find themselves going to other businesses parking. So I thank you for your time, and with that, I'll end.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this project? Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this project? Okay, I need a motion to close the floor, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Questions, comments?
Parking has always been talked about in that area for some time. Anytime you have an event, you're gonna have a lot of people. How do you address it? It's funny, when you do have an event, everybody finds a parking spot. I don't care what it is or where you go, they park them. It's just human nature to get to whatever you want to go to. The numbers that have been brought out can be right, they can be wrong. Peak hours are normal for all you people. Your businesses in that area all guard your parking lots on events. I see people out there in yellow jackets making sure the people coming in are the people you want in your lots. you can talk about people going into your lots, but your people are going into other lots when they're full. I'll guarantee you that. In time, this thing's gonna get much, my vision is, this is the beginning of what these people wanna do. I think Armed Forces Way someday will be lined up with all that. What are you gonna talk about then? The first thing you're gonna talk about is parking. So I can understand all of your opinions, but what do you do when you go to another city? Go to Chicago. Go downtown Milwaukee. There are no rules and regulations down there. You may pay to park in somebody's private parking lot. And that's just the cost of an evening to go out. So what they've got planned here, I think, is something that is good for all of you. Nobody has denied the looks or anything of the building. It's always the parking. Parking has come up when we built apartments. It comes up when we created a Titletown district. And here we are again. So in my opinion, I think what is going on is just something that is created by development, and we just put up with the space that we've got. In time, that might change. I don't have the answer to that in time and what, but as far as the future, we got to control what we got right now. The future, we can't. We don't know what's out there in the future. It can be better, it can be worse. We don't know that. Hopefully, we're on a good ride right now, so. I personally think the project is good. I think the parking will, and I know it's something that you've talked about for a long time, but I think it's something that'll take care of itself.
It looks like site plan passed this. Did they have these updated numbers when they looked at it?
No, this here is something new that they brought tonight in front of us.
Oh, okay. So Plan Commission has not seen the new numbers?
No, this is all new to the entire board tonight.
Do we maybe want to send it back to Planning Commission or Site Plan and have them look at this new information?
So, just to clarify, so this particular item was brought through two committees prior to the board. Site Plan Review Committee, based on the location of this development, forwards their recommendation to the board. The Planning Commission also has a responsibility to review the proposal and then forward their recommendation to the board. So both Site Plan Review Committee and Plan Commission have done that in regards to the proposal. The proposal that you viewed tonight and the presentation is in response to the recommendations that both came from Site Plan Review Committee and Plan Commission. So the elements that they were describing tonight were in response to the questions and concerns that primarily came up from Planning Commission. So Site Plan Review Committee recommended approval. Planning Commission recommended denial. So you had kind of a split recommendation from those two items. Certainly within the purview of the board to refer it back to committee if you would like further input. But at this time, those are the recommendations from the committees to date.
And anything that the plan board brought to the staff has been met, so that has been taken care of. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to make a motion to approve the project as presented with the facts that they gave us. And I'll let that ride.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, and I want to add to that, I pretty much agree with Gary that what these people presented was, I think, fair. We got to keep in mind, first of all, safety and, you know, what our public safety and fire needs to protect in the busiest hours. I get down to city of Austin, Texas quite often. In fact, I was just there past week. And they have the same issues no matter where you go down there. And I'll admit a year or two ago when I was down there, I parked in somebody's property to walk to a next door business, and it was signed properly not to park there if I wasn't doing business there, and I got booted. That was my fault. Whether it's unfortunate or not, it's, as long as this is done reasonably and safely, and we can feel comfortable with it in those aspects, it does fall on the other businesses to kind of manage your properties and however you want to do that, whether it's manning people or charging parking fees with like businesses do on Packer weekends with tickets for $10 off food, whatever. But we can't stop development in my opinion, this issue, when I think it's what they've presented is reasonable.
Under discussion, I agree with both Gary and Chris, their comments on the parking. My concern with the development as a whole from the start is I just think there's way too much on this very little site overall. It's, in my opinion, is putting 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. So I would vote against it for that reason. I just think we're just packing too much in there.
I disagree with that because the price of property is so expensive in this area here that in order to get a return on your dollar, you gotta go up. You can't keep buying land and spreading it out because pretty soon you're not making a profit. So I think what they've done here, what they've done here is maximize everything they can in order to do it right for themselves and basically for us too, because that's all tax money for us to keep you people with the services that we've got.
I think my comment is this is going to be an ongoing problem down there. I got to admit, I'm a little concerned that in our sports and entertainment district that there seems to be this battle amongst you. I wish that wasn't there because I feel like that if you could all work together, I think we could come up with a solution with the assistance of the village possibly to this problem, because this problem isn't going to go away. Okay, you got this project, but then there's going to be another project, and it's just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. Personally, that was a nice presentation. I don't buy it, but I appreciate what you were trying to present. I get your line of thought, but having been down in that area in some of the peak times and seeing how those parking lots are already full, I don't know that adding another 147 spots in the new facility is gonna handle it. That's my personal opinion there. But having said that, this problem is going to exist. And I think it's up to all of us here to try to come up with what is that long-term solution. And I'd really like to see you guys try to work together, figure out what that is, because I agree. To have somebody standing out there, that's costing you money. It's not a viable solution long-term, you know? And I know at D2, I'm looking at Joe back there. I know you guys have been doing this forever because of the Resch Center. And I think something has to happen in that sports and entertainment district to be able to support all of you guys. And it's from that parking perspective. And I think you guys need to come together. I think we can help support that and try to come up with what is that overall solution. Maybe it is a paid parking thing. Maybe it is. But I think if we put too much in there and people start coming down there, they're going to get frustrated because they can't get to your nice venues. And guess what's going to happen? They're going to start going someplace else. And nobody wants that. We don't want that. You guys don't want that. So I think it really means that we all have to kind of get together and figure out what is that long-term solution? Because these projects are gonna continue to come. There's a lot of land down there yet with some other businesses on it that are probably gonna eventually go away. And this type of venues and things like that are gonna continue to be there.
To me,
Took
it'd
the
be a
words
lot
right out of my
easier,
mouth.
it'd
I'm
be a
sorry.
lot easier if site plan and planning commission recommended to us to approve it. It would be way easier for me to vote. It feels like we're doing the committee work on the board, which feels a little out of order or something to me.
I don't think that way. You know, and I always say this at every site plan meeting. Aaron wouldn't bring anything to us that was not usable in our ordinances or how it should be done. We do have the option to deviate a little bit from it, but this project came in and there was really no project. Plan board came and we did not recommend approving it till they met the conditions that we were talking about earlier this evening. So I don't see any problem in how we're operating this or we're going about this. Joel, I see you got the mic hot, so.
I was just gonna add, certainly the board can continue to discuss the motion that's on the table. At present, there is a motion to approve the site plan. Just as a quick notation, this is a site plan approval, so it is an administrative decision for the board to make. Ultimately, the decision to approve or deny should be based on whether or not the site plan meets the code requirements. So with the motion on the table, if the board feels that the site plan meets the requirements of the code, i.e. Parking being the predominant issue that I'm hearing on the table, does the site plan meet your expectations for a parking plan? If so, then obviously vote to approve. If the site plan does not meet the requirements of the code in relation to its parking plan, then obviously you would vote conversely to the motion that's currently on the floor. And then in that case, there would be, presumptively a motion to deny the site plan. With that motion to deny, it would be recommended to provide some type of, fact-based motion that states that they didn't meet the parking requirements necessary to support the enterprise, and then just state what that is.
I did make the motion with the parking recommendations that were made.
My comment on this issue, Aaron, at site plan and plan board the last time, I voted against this project because of, number one, the liquor license issues, number two, the parking issues. The liquor license issues have been met with the 300 seats on each floor. Now, there are rules and regulations that go with those, so that they will have to deal with. I agree with everything that Jay said, that this is gonna just be a continuing problem in that area of the parking. And I agree that down in that area, the land is so expensive. You've all bought it, so you know it is expensive. I mean, there was just recently a transaction at 0.4 acres at 1.2 million. So it's very expensive down there. So we do need to get together, the landowners down there, the businesses down there, and figure out a solution to having something to fix the parking issue. So I look at this though, like with the hotel, the height restriction on the hotel was a big thing. We all struggled with that. But we didn't deny the project because that's the first one that's gonna spark that you have to fix the problem. And that's what I feel with this, with the parking. especially the next year, you know, with the draft coming, we're all gonna have to struggle with parking everywhere in Ashwaubenon. So, I feel, Aaron, that they have met the site plan requirements.
Under our code, as Joel had mentioned, we do not have a strict parking minimum. We do have a requirement for a parking plan that the business owner feels this is how they can best accommodate their guests and make their business successful. The reason the board actually went that route, well, that's probably 5-6 years ago now, was because there was a recognition that we can put any number that we want into our code, but ultimately that number is made up. We don't know what that magic number is, but the business owners know what they need for their business to succeed. And I guess that's where we're counting on their expertise to tell us what they need for their business to be successful.
So if there's no parking code, why did we even have a huge discussion? I mean, we don't have discretion to even say no then, do we? There's no parking code. The site plan is just, does this meet the code? Yes, it does.
No, I think there's to some degree discretion as to whether, they have to produce a parking plan, and that parking plan needs to be sufficient and reasonable to suggest that the parking situation will support the enterprise and not create a condition that's unhealthy, unsafe, and detrimental to the surrounding land uses. And that's where you have to use a bit of discretion in understanding what the parking plan is being proposed for that enterprise, and if it doesn't create that undue burden, if you will, in the surrounding neighborhood.
You know, in some respects, the village has helped these people out. When Mike McCarthy Way was redeveloped, we put parking on Mike McCarthy Way. When Morse Avenue was redeveloped, we put parking on those streets. So the village has done everything we can in order to give you more parking. It may be off-street, not on your premise, but I think we've done as much as we can right now. We don't know where this is all going to end, and I think that's been kind of the answer that everybody's got here. The future is bright around here, and it's something that we have to definitely take a look at, and including the businesses involved in it. But I don't think it's a reason to deny this project.
Any other comments? If not, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No?
Nay.
Okay, so that's Kelly, Chris, and Tracy.
So there were 3 noes? Okay. Motion passes. Okay, 10C, consider, discuss, act on resolution R 4-1-24, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed 2.730,000 general obligation promissory notes, series 2024A, and resolution R 4-2-24, 2024, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed 1.825,000 taxable general obligation promissory notes, series 2024B. Okay, Joel.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. That was a long motion, but that's required under statutes to make note of as part of tonight's action. As noted in the agenda, there's 2 specific resolutions to review and consider for approval to issue 2 individual promissory notes. These promissory notes are in support of actions and activities prior authorizations the board has made. The first resolution will be for the sale of just roughly over $2.7 million of general obligation promissory notes to support general fund street enhancement improvements as well as completion or work towards our EAB tree removals. In addition to that, it will support projects in tax incremental District Number 3, which includes the Lombardi Access Road reconstruction project. It also includes Phragmite remediation as well as a project for stormwater utility to fund some land acquisition to support another pond project. The second resolution is for just over $1.8 million. The proceeds from that issuance or that note will go towards a tax incremental finance incentive that was agreed upon by the village a few years back for residential development on Element Way. Brad from RW Baird is on the line, so I think Brad is here to present the two note issuances and answer any detailed questions that you may have. So I'll pass it over to Brad. Thanks for sticking with us, Brad.
Okay, thank you. I'll walk through the presentation that's included in this for this item and answer any questions. In terms of a timeline, with the adoption of both of these resolutions, Baird and village staff is going to continue making preparations for the issuance of the two obligations, and that includes finalizing the offering document, or what's called the official statement. We've got a bond rating secured. I'm proud to announce that Moody's has assigned and affirmed the AA2 bond rating of the village, which is a very high quality bond rating. We would market these issues to investors nationwide, and then it's anticipated that later this week, on April 25th, the terms and the rates for both of these obligations would be finalized, and then the closing would take place May 15th. There's a summary of the obligations and I won't walk through this line by line, much covered, but I do want to point out the estimated interest rate for the tax exempt issue based on current market, 3.57%, and the estimated rate on tip number 5 note issue is 5.25%. Now, these resolutions establish a narrow set of parameters that if these parameters are met, then we would go ahead and award a little later this week. Those parameters are detailed on the bottom of this summary page. It includes a not to exceed borrowing amount, not to exceed interest rates of each, and the maturity schedule. And then there's some flexibility to adjust individual principal payments to meet the debt service targets of the village. I've included with this presentation a detailed amortization or repayment schedule for both the 24A, that is the tax exempt issue, and then next to that you'll see the 24B. And I've also detailed the allocation of the funding source for the payments on those issues. So there's a general fund support, TID 3 support, TID number 5, and a stormwater component. Further detailed schedules are included in the remainder of this presentation for completeness, but I won't walk through those unless there's specific questions. And with that, I'll just pause. If there are any questions, if anyone needs more detail, I'd be glad to expand on the presentation.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution R4-1-24, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $2.730 million general obligation promissory notes, Series 2024A, and Resolution R4-2-2024, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $1,825,000 taxable general obligation promissory notes, Series 2024B.
I'll second it. You're proud. I'm proud of you, Kelly. You did
I was just thinking that.
Did good.
I was
I'm
just
gonna-
applauding her.
I'm going to cheat because we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution R4-1-24 and Resolution R4-2-2024.
I have one quick question. Under the utility relocates on our agenda items down further, we have the lumen. Is that going to be covered by this bond? That'll fit within this?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Just had to wait for to go live.
Okay.
You notice the interest rates are up slightly. So just like everybody else, we get higher interest rates, huh, Brad?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The rates that the village is gonna pay are up, and that's not anything to the village's, fault. It's a reflection of where the market has moved in the last 18 months or so.
Yeah. Thank you. So
And I will add just to that point is we did maintain a AA2 bond rating. So we did go through a Moody's rating review. And so that is the highest rating that we could receive at this time based on our population and other considerations. So very, very, very good bond rating and continues to perpetuate Greg's good work in the finance end of things and maintaining a sound financial status for the village.
Okay. So, we're moving on.
Had a vote on it.
Oh,
Vote.
We did. No.
she said we voted. I asked her if we voted, and she said yes.
Can't we?
Oh, we have
I
a.
moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Brad. 10D, consider, discuss, act on temporary liquor license extension at El Sarape West LLC, DBA El Sarape West. Chris.
So El Sarape West is requesting a temporary liquor license extension in their south parking lot for an event they're having on Saturday, May 4th. Public Works and Protection Committee voted unanimously to approve. And Trustee Krieger did have the question if everything was good with fire code, and I checked with Chief Yule the next day, and he said everything was fine. If you have any questions, they are in the audience to answer any questions.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to extend the temporary liquor license extension at El Sarape West. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. 10E, consider, discuss, act on Lombardi Access Road burying utilities, additional utility that we found. Mr. Rickert.
Absolutely. So you guys are probably well aware Lombardi Access Road project is well off the ground. With that, WPS and Ensite was working to relocate their utilities, or overhead utilities. You guys may recall back later part of last year, we had decided to bury those utilities to kind of clean up the appearance. During that process, when WPS got ready to take their poles down, they noted that there was an additional utility when utility notifications were sent out that was on their poles, that was Lumen. With that, in order to kind of help clean up that area, we worked with Lumen to see what that cost would be. The contingencies within the project will be able to cover those costs. You do have in front of you the formal proposal from Lumen. It's in a dollar amount of around $42,000. I would assume that the overall dollar amount from them when they're complete with their work shouldn't be more than $45,000. But it is ultimately the last and unfortunately the ugliest utility. They have a bunch of stuff attached to the poles. One of the lines, there's a bunch of access cable, fiber optic cable that's actually spooled up, hanging on a pole. Along with in that line, there's what's referred to as a tennis racket, which is kind of how they double back on their lines and stuff like that. So it's a pretty big eyesore, unfortunately. Ideally, we would have known about this when we came in front of you guys late last year, but part of the unknowns of doing construction. So with that, I'm open for any questions.
Brian, you said that's in the budget to cover that $47,000.
Correct.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve, to execute a contract with Lumen in an amount not to exceed $45,000 to bury their utilities on Lombardi Access Road. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. 10F, consider, discuss, act on refuse truck upfitting cost increase. Mr. Rickert.
All right, so in front of you guys tonight, you do have a upcharge. The reason that it's in front of you because it does push this project over budget. With that being said, when we, the week before I had started here with the village, we actually executed a contract with Envirotech to purchase a new garbage truck, refuse truck from them. Due to the fact that, we're now 2 years after that, Much like your automobiles, they don't get any cheaper as they grow in model years. So there has been a model year increase going into this year. Of course, there's some additional features, nothing major, but unfortunately we can't remove those to try to recoup that cost. Just to do our due diligence, I did actually send out a request for quotes to get a new garbage truck. If we were to execute a contract today with a different vendor, the garbage trucks right now are selling for right around $420,000 for the truck and upfitting. So we're still well below that, but we are over budget on this single line item. It should be noted that we are overall $145,000 under budget when it comes looking at all of our other fleet. So there is vehicles that came in under. It's just unfortunately this single line item is over. So I just wanted to be transparent and bring that in front of the board for consideration.
Excellent. I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to grant the upcharge cost for the refuse truck build in the amount of $5,750 to Envirotech Equipment.
You're lucky I got away that cheap, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 10G, consider, discuss, act on Kimberly Street Bridge Aid Petition. Mr. Rickert.
Yeah, so in front of you guys tonight, we have a bridge aid petition. It's something that a petition that we send out to Brown County for their consideration. What it does is it helps support half of the construction costs of replacing a culvert. You'll see in here it says bridge. Anything over 36 inches they consider a bridge. So you can apply for this funding source that essentially helps offset the costs, much like timber culvert they're replacing this year that did also receive bridge aid. It's just an application that we apply for. We may not get it, but it helps to offset those costs for construction.
So Brian, obviously the bridge aids can be used on non-government or non-county roads.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and it does need to be only within the village right of way, roadway that's used for vehicle traffic.
What are the chances of getting it? Are there a lot of aids that are being looked at right now, or looked for, I should say?
The likelihood of us getting one this go around is pretty slim because we got one for this year.
Oh.
So I figured to apply, it's not going to hurt, but yeah, the likelihood is pretty slim.
I'll move
Any
to
issue,
approve
Brian,
the,
that because it's buried so much not underneath the road, is there any issue with that?
Yeah, so that's something that we're going to have to work through when it comes to permitting. It's going to be challenging to get the DNR to permit that. It's likely that they won't permit it. We may only be able to replace the culvert under the roadway. The portion that's in the rear yards, essentially you encase the navigable stream in a culvert. We're looking to have some neighborhood meetings to kind of let the 4 or 5 residents know that this project is coming. Unfortunately, the portion that is in the backyards actually does have some areas where it's starting to cave in the center. We're not seeing it on the surface yet, but it will likely fail. One of the reasons why you'll see the financial impact on this project between $312,000 and $555,000 is mainly the difference between whether or not we bury that part in the people's backyards. So ultimately, if we do that, it almost doubles the price of the project. That portion that's in the backyards is not covered under bridge aid, so it'd be 100% supported by our stormwater utility.
Okay.
So it's something that we'll probably have, a neighborhood meeting to talk with the residents, and then be circling back with the board to look to get some formal direction, because that's a big dollar amount. So essentially, it's another culvert under a road, just to have people's backyards have additional green space.
Right.
That is also village property there too. Where that culvert's buried, so.
I'll make a motion to petition Brown County for bridge aid funds to assist in the replacement of the culvert on Kimberly Street north of Buffalo Street.
Second it.
Motion and a second to do what Kelly and Gary said. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. 10H, consider, discuss, act on request for proposal of architectural and engineering services to complete a municipal facilities condition assessment and space utilization study.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I'll be quick, Gary, very quick. So this is incorporated in the 2024 budget to do a facility condition assessment and space utilization study. We'll be looking at 3 individual properties or locations: Village Hall, Public Safety, the Public Works Garage, as well as Station 2 over at Pioneer. Essentially, what they're going to be doing is putting together a 20-year plan for repair and maintenance activities, such as windows, roofs, HVAC systems, so on and so forth, and then also study the utilization of the buildings to determine if there needs to be additional work done to accommodate future uses for each of those 3 facilities. I presume as part of the study, it may come back to say, you know, we don't need that facility or whatever, I suppose. That could be a portion of that project as well. We have detailed specifications in the request for proposals. What we're seeking tonight is approval from the board to move forward with the project as proposed in the budget and requested as part of the RFP. Ultimately, the board will approve a contract to a successful qualified bidder when they are received. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
So it's just the first step in getting this going. All right, move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve those proposal for RFP. Any other?
Under discussion real quick. This obviously is a huge project, and I know it's part of the budget, but my question on it has to do with the timelines. I think it's kind of a quick turnaround for the firms to get it back into us and give them the amount of time that they may need to get it organized, because I would assume the firms might subcontract for some of this work and making sure they're getting good sound numbers from those subcontractors. So I would like to see the timeline maybe extended a little bit for the return of the RFPs. And also to give staff enough time to review. It seemed like it was kind of a quick turnaround on our end to get the approvals back to village board. So, I mean, it needs to be done, and I'm glad it's getting done, but I would like to see the timeline extended a little bit to make sure we get the best proposals that we can and give them the time to do it.
If you needed more time, you'd bring it back to us anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we'll plan to extend it and just plan to bring it forward, a month later, something to that effect. I think that's more than sufficient.
Yeah, I just I want to keep it as short as possible, and that's in your ballpark. You determine if you need more time, and then you just bring that back to us at that time.
So just keep the motion the way it is, and then if they need more time, they can come and ask for more time.
If they need more time, they'll come back to us.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just trying to understand what I'm voting on here.
Me too.
So I think the motion will be to approve authorizing staff to solicit proposals based on the specifications. Staff will review the timeline for submission. We may extend that submission 1 month. So instead of coming back in, let's say, June with a final approval, it may be July.
I'll move to approve what Joel said.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve what Joel said for the proposals. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. 10I, consider, discuss, act on request for additional funding for a Z-Master mower and request to order a 5900 mower for 2025. Rex.
All right, 2 parts in one agenda item. Let's hit the Z-Master first. The 2024 budget had $11,000 budgeted for a Toro commercial mower. Unfortunately, we need a new bagging system as well. The bid, which is a state bid program for the smaller sized, and this is a smaller size, about a 52-inch cut if I'm remembering right. It's the one that the college kids use quite a bit. And it's the best way for me to say this.
It has a rough life.
It has a rough life because it's younger employees that are using it and that are using equipment for the first time. And we have that. It's what's needed. Unfortunately, the Z-Master is what we need. It's a much thicker mill, and the metal being a bull-nosed front. That has come in $1,560 over the $11,000 that was originally budgeted.
It's through the state bid program. We'd be buying it locally at Kim's. It is the cost of what it is. We wouldn't be able to get it cheaper anywhere else. It's the same everywhere with that state bid program. So part one of this request is for an additional $1,560 to purchase the zero-turn Z-Master from Kim's. Part two of this request, doing it all at once, is talking with the Toro larger mower reps. This is this big 16-footer, and we've got 3 of them in our fleet. We have 3 of them in use in our fleet. The oldest one is from 2008. The 2008 model is an older one. There are parts that are not being made for it. In fact, our mechanics had to go to a golf course 2 years ago and literally pull apart an old mower they had in the field to get parts to keep ours running. We're looking to replace that mower in the 2025 budget, but the reason I'm asking for it now, it's 12 to 16 months out build time. So I would like to get permission to order that mower now. I will say that the rep said if we decide not to approve it, moving on during the budget time in this coming fall, it would not be any big deal because he said there's a line of people that would jump on it because it would just mean a shorter wait time for them. So really it's no skin off our backs whether we decide not to get it in the future, but we need it. When we would replace it, like I said, we'd be replacing a 2008. It's almost a double bonus. We'd also be able to replace or get rid of the 2005, which we now have in stock sitting in one of our storage rooms, which we use specifically just for parts to keep the 2008 running because we don't have the parts available on the market for it. So if we wind up getting it officially through the 2025 budget, we'd be getting rid of 2 of the larger gang mowers that we have in our inventory for the new one. So I don't know how you want to tackle it. If you have any comments or questions for me on either one of those items.
I'd make a
Knowing
motion.
equipment, you got to move on it now because it's going to definitely increase as time goes on.
Right.
Yep.
So I don't think we have much of a choice here other than to take your recommendations and move with it so that it isn't going to cost us more down the line. It's surprisingly, you've got stuff that goes back that far that still runs, so.
That's a feather in the cap, Gary, to our village mechanics.
Yeah,
They do a great job of keeping it on the
Yeah,
road.
and I gotta applaud you for doing that, but time comes when you have to replace it, so let's just go for it. I'll make a motion to approve Rex's item 1 and item 2 is presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Item number 1, an additional $1,560 for the 2024 budget. And item number 2, to order a $139,487 mower
Is that air conditioning, Rex?
in the 2025 budget.
No, out of the 3 mowers we have, one of them has a cab, which technically is supposed to have air conditioning. Our mower operators all prefer, if weathers are good, they all prefer the open air mower because they feel the one with the cab that has the air conditioning acts more of a greenhouse effect when you're working inside of it.
I have gotten that comment from your people.
Okay, we have 2 motions on the floor. Everybody understand them? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
10J, consider, discuss, act on Village of Ashwaubenon ordinance number 04-2-24, amending cigarette and tobacco product licensing. Mr. Patrick.
The state statutes were recently amended to include the licensing of vaping products or vaping devices in addition to cigarette and tobacco products. This simply is amending our code to align with state statutes that we're allowed to license cigarette, tobacco product, and vaping devices. So it aligns with state statutes. Why the change? Well, basically, there's product you could probably put in a vaping device you couldn't regulate that wouldn't be defined as maybe a tobacco product or a cigarette. So that's the reason for the change, why the state changed it, and we're requesting to just stay aligned with the state statutes regarding the licensing.
So Patrick, if they're just selling vaping products, for instance, they would get this license that they could sell cigarettes and tobacco also?
Correct, they could. But they'd have to apply for everything, but yes, they could.
So no more than adding cider to liquor license years ago, right?
Essentially, yeah.
Come on,
Yes, you
somebody
want to look at it that way?
approve.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance number 04-2-24. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 10K, consider, discuss, act on Village of Ashwaubenon ordinance number 04-1-24, amending hours of operation for Class A fermented malt beverage licenses. Patrick?
If the board recalls, a few months ago, staff proposed an ordinance change to amending the sale of Class A beer. So just think of your retail store that sells beer, like gas station, liquor store, et cetera. So beer that you're consuming off the premise. You're not consuming at a bar or anything. So the current license or the current code says you cannot sell beer from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and then 8 to 12 Friday through Sunday. So the state statute does allow Class A retail, the sale of beer from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. Excuse me. Yes. The staff requested that be changed to, again, align with the state statutes and how that's regulated. And the village board sent this back to committee to see if there was any input from public safety. And speaking with chief and other public safety officers, there really is not, there's not an objection at all to the ordinance change. In fact, it probably is a little bit easier to regulate, just based on you're not kind of determining what hours you can sell based on the different dates. So again, we're bringing this back to, again, request this be changed with the input from the public safety. So again, this ordinance would change for the village to allow the sale of beer from 6 to 12 every day, AM to AM. There is a question at committee. This was approved at committee, but there was a question what other local municipalities have something similar. So Green Bay is the only one that has something similar to this. So 6 to 12 is through Green Bay, but De Pere and Alloway are the other, and Hobart are the other ones in the surrounding area that do have different hours. So De Pere, for example, I think wrote down is 9 p.m. to 8 a.m. where you cannot sell.
You had a comment from one of the officers saying it's much easier to control knowing it's uniform with other communities, so
Right.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance 04-1-24. Any other discussion?
Yeah, in the name of consistency for me and what I believe, actually, not just consistency, but to keep extending the hours to me just gives people an opportunity to party later into night and make that last beer run later in the night when they've been consuming enough already. So I'll be voting no on it, but I get it, it's gonna pass, but that's just my opinion on it.
Okay. Any other comments?
I think it's good to keep it consistent with what the state has, but I've already stated, I think the state of Wisconsin allows way too much access to alcohol, but that's my personal opinion.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with one more beer yet.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Everybody understands the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nope.
Motion carried. Thank you. Number 11, items for next agenda. Okay, I just want to say, this isn't for next agenda, but at some point, like we stated earlier, I think we need to get the businesses in the sports and entertainment district together, and we need to have a meeting, because we've got to figure this out. I don't know what that answer is, but we've got to figure it out, because it's only going to get bigger, and like I said, the land down there is pricey, and you got to go up, so.
It's time it should be done, Mary, because we've talked about this in the past when the development started. It's
I
10
agree,
years
parking's a
ago.
problem.
Got to be taken care of.
Okay.
Mary, I'd like to see on next month, the agenda, the short-term rental be put on there.
Okay.
as far as the grandfathering in and the 180 days, I'd like to have a discussion on it yet.
Okay. That will come back next month. Number 12, closed session items. During the meeting, the village board of the Village of Ashwaubenon may convene into closed session pursuant to A, B, and C, as written in the agenda.
No.
And roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry, we need a motion and a second.
Motion to go into closed session?
Second.
Motion and a second to go into closed session. Roll call, please.
President Kardasky.
Yes.
Trustee Service.
Yes.
Trustee Paul.
Yes.
Trustee Zerbal.
Yes.
Trustee Atkinson.
Yes.
Trustee Krieger.
Yes.
And Trustee Flukie.
Yes.
We deserve it.
Going into closed session.
This